An ancient alien race appeared on planet Earth over 500,000 years ago. This specific race brought along a magical dust they call the ash. Aliens use this dust to manipulate human beings and control them in any way they want to. The CIA has been aware that the alien race used to exist all those thousands of years ago and is trying to come back in hopes of enslaving humanity. They have found this out, as many individuals have come in contact with the ash, and many of them have been severely affected by it, except for one. That person is Jim. Instead of being deeply affected, or possibly perishing from the magical dust, Jim has gained superhuman abilities and somehow can get in contact with the aliens. The CIA has been made aware of a few individuals who have come into contact with the ash and how they have gone berserk. Those individuals also include John, who has attacked some of his relatives. The CIA arrives in time and gets a hold of John. Back at the CIA facility, Dr. Jansen gets in contact with Alistair, the person who is funding an entire project which would find out more about the ash and the alien race. Jansen informs Alistair about the superhuman strength Jim has gained ever since he got affected by the ash. Alistair wants to run more tests on Jim, as he believes Jim might be the one to fight off the alien race. The entire facility is being run by a special energy source, and most of the people over there have no idea where it comes from. John is brought into the facility, and he is completely under the control of the aliens. Jansen, who is a proficient scientist, tries to elicit answers from John. Aliens already seem to have an upper hand on the human civilization, in the form of the ash, and they use John to tell Jansen that the aliens are watching everything. After going through the routine health checkup, Jim gets a flashback of how he and his friends ran into the ash, and most of his friends perished on the spot. Jim made it out alive, but he, too, hasn't been the same. Jansen sits down to have a small chat with Jim, and she confesses that this facility has many individuals who have lost their loved ones to the ash. Just like Jim lost his friends, Jansen lost his beloved sister. Jim asks if Angela, who is his love interest, doing well, to which Jansen affirms. Jim has never felt the love of a proper family. He was an orphan ever since he opened his eyes to this world, and the parents who adopted Jim abandoned him in the future as well. Angela is all that Jim had in this world, before the incident with the ash. Not wanting to put a burden on Jim, Jansen still lets Jim know that he would be undergoing combat training if the alien civilization indeed appears to attack all humans. Jim can't fully wrap his head around that, as he has no aptitude for combat, but Jansen reveals what Jim has gained from the ash and how he will learn soon enough. Jim goes to meet Aaron, who shows Jim all of the firearms that could be used during combat. Jim learns that the firearms use an energized round, rather than a traditional bullet. Jim would be learning how to fight off the aliens by training with the help of RUNTs. Jansen, Aaron, and another crew member, Billy, put Jim in a simulation where he is supposed to put down as many RUNTs as possible. Jansen is surprised to find out that Jim is not like the rest of the armed forces, as he displays exceptional fighting skills without any past combat training. Despite Jim's patience and ability to mix well with others, he can't control the horrific flashbacks he keeps getting of his step-parents abandoning and when he and his friends were affected by the ash. During this time, Angela also reunites with him. The entire facility is aware that Jim has obtained an insane amount of strength from the ash, which is why Alistair has arrived to meet Jim in person. Alistair informs Jim that when he became affluent, he started attending parties of the elite. The elite then told Alistair about a secret group and persuaded Alistair to join it. Alistair was a smart man, as he did his own research before doing anything. Alistair tells Jim that the secret group used to serve the Kenyans, which is a powerful alien race, and is responsible for the ash. Alistair lets Jim know that the aliens are coming, and they want to take over the human race. Alistair created this secret facility full of incredible talent to fight off the alien race if they decide to enter this planet. Jim is baffled to learn that the ash is able to manipulate humans, but it gave Jim the unique power of getting into contact with the aliens. Alistair pleads to Jim to use his power to communicate with the alien race and know what they are up to. The main faction of the facility has returned. The faction also includes Captain Lyndon and Bell. Lyndon seems familiar to Jim, who later remembers that Lyndon took Jim out of the desert where he and his friends were attacked by the ash. Lyndon, who is now aware that Jim has obtained superpowers from the ash, decides to challenge his team in the simulation. Jim accepts confidently. As John is under the control of the aliens, Jim uses his abilities to find out what the alien race intends to do in the future. Jim is not able to get anything out of John, who instead begins to play mind games with Jim. Alistair takes Jim and shows him the spaceship the entire facility has been working on for some time. Alistair sits down to have a latte with Jim, and during that time, Jim learns about the past of the alien race. Alistair stresses the importance of how Jim will play a huge factor in fighting the aliens, and how important it is for everybody to protect their loved one. Jim, with everything that has happened, can't seem to process what the facility is trying to accomplish. The time for the challenge has arrived. The first team to put down 100 RUNTs wins the challenge. Jim is the only one who is able to perform well in his group. Lyndon, who is doing the best out of anybody, still can't believe that Jim's combat skills are so good, considering the fact that he hasn't been in combat in the past. Despite all of this, Lyndon's team is able to score the win. Meanwhile, Angela was given the task of examining Jim's blood and how it has been affected after coming into contact with the ash. Angela shockingly learns that Jim's blood is altered in such a manner that it can fight any disease from now on. Alistair tells Jim that he has located Jim's biological mother, and she is safe and sound in Hong Kong. Jim still doesn't know what Alistair has to gain from all of this. Jim lost his friends to the ash, and everyone in this facility has lost someone special, except for Alistair. Alistair chooses to remain silent on this matter. John continues to remain cryptic in telling what the motives of the alien race are. Jim suffers another haunting flashback. This time, he remembers that he left Angela in the past because he is infertile. As Angela always wanted to have children of her own, Jim chose to leave her life slowly. As Jim now remembers all of this, he loses focus of what his mission in this facility. Jim begins to think about what actually powers the entire base. Nobody knows the answer to that. Jim asks Billy to find out the closest source from where the energy might be coming. She learns that the source is strangely present in a generator in the simulation at level 8. No one has gone that far in the simulation, as that is where things begin to get fatal for the person in it. Jim wishes to proceed with it, as it may allow them to find out what this energy, and if it can help them in fighting the ash or even the aliens. Despite Lyndon's disapproval, he lets everyone proceed with the mission. Jim and his teammates are able to reach that level, after fighting several RUNTs, only to find out that they have to defuse a bomb to access the generator. The bomb goes off, which causes everyone to pass out on the spot. When he regains consciousness, Jim is brought to meet Alistair. Alistair is surprised to see Jim making it out alive from that devastating level. Alistair reveals that he placed that bomb on purpose, in hopes of finding anyone who could ever reach it. Alistair begins to tell the story of how he indeed was in contact with the Kenyans for some time. That alien race forced Alistair to invite his son. Alistair's son abandoned him after he found out what his father was up to. When he returned to his father, the Kenyans used the ash to end Alistair's son's life. Alistair grieved for years, until he made it his mission to fight the Kenyans someday. Alistair tells Jim that the ash bonds well with the human soul, which is why Jim has gained that super strength of his. Alistair also tells that the energy of his human life is being mixed with the ash to power the entire facility. It is an indication of what the human soul is capable of, and Alistair believes that energy of this kind should only be used to help others. After learning that Jim's human life can be used with the ash to generate energy, Alistair makes it his mission to train Jim to the point where he can not only communicate with the Kenyans, but also call them to Earth and defeat them. For days, Jim is trained both physically and spiritually. Meanwhile, Jansen's behavior begins to change, and it feels like she is hiding something from Alistair. Jim calls Angela, and both of them reminisce about how Angela always wanted to be a doctor. Jim, not wanting to spoil the beautiful moment, still lets Angela know that he left her because he can't have children of his own. Knowing Angela wanted to be a mother, he left her for good. Angela is upset over Jim's action and decision, but professes her love for him and tells him that they can be together and adopt children. Now that Jim has gained more strength, he tries to force John to tell him the information he needs. When John's son is brought into the discussion, he becomes furious at Jim. Jim learns that John's son was also affected by the ash. Using this newly found information, Jim gets inside John's head and finds a peaceful version of John, the one that is not under the influence of the Kenyans. Not even expecting this for a second, Jim finds out that Jansen was in contact with the aliens for a long time, and she has called them to Earth. Jansen fatally shoots Alistair and Jim. Jim recovers instantly, thanks to his super strength, but Alistair doesn't, and loses his life on the spot. The aliens promised to revive Jansen's daughter, but they lied and betrayed her. They continue to wreak havoc by Jansen too. The entire facility begins to fight off the aliens and head toward the spaceship. Jim goes to get Angela, but having gone through so much already, Angela betrays Jim, as she too is under the influence of the Kenyans. Knowing he can't do anything now, Jim comes face to face with the Kenyans, something he was being prepared for. At first, the alien is able to overpower Jim, but knowing what Alistair meant to him and everyone else, Jim uses his spiritual and combat skills to fight off the deadly Kenyans. Before more Kenyans can arrive, Jim leaves with the rest of his teammates. As he is now determined more than ever, Jim orders the spaceship to go where Alistair wanted them to go, so that they can all prepare for the worst that is yet to come.